family hatchbacks. They're the workhorses of the motoring world. Whether they're sucking up long motorway journeys on the way to work or litres of baby sick on a family holiday, they're the dependable, practical cars that won't break the bank.
But which do you choose between the Ford Focus, the Volkswagen Golf, or the new Vauxhall, or Opel depending on where you're from, Astra? This one's got a personalised number plate on it, which probably costs more than the car.
To help you decide, I'm going to compare their design.
It's boxy.
Test what they're like to drive.
Vauxhall has nailed it with this car. I cannot believe I'm actually saying that.
See how practical they are.
Yeah, this probably isn't the car for you.
And see what you get for your money. The Ford Focus starts from £16,245, but you can save an average of £3,927 on one at carwow.co.uk. The Golf, meanwhile, starts from £17,625, and you can save an average of £2,564 on one at carwow. And finally, the Astra starts from £15,445, and you can save an average of £2,467 on one through carwow.co.uk. Now, if you click on the pop-out banner in the top right-hand corner of the video player, you can see the best deal you can get on your dream car through the Carwow website. Now though, let's talk about design, because making a family hatchback look appealing is quite some task, and some makers are better at it than others.
The Astra sort of looks like it's been designed by two separate teams because it's a case of nice arse, shame about the face.
The front looks like they just copied Japanese designs from a few years ago. From side on, it gets better thanks to the rising waistline, and from the back, it's just gorgeous. Well, for a hatchback. With the Focus, it's actually the other way around. The rear looks a bit awkward while the front end just works.
The Ford Focus definitely has the sharpest looking face of the three cars. It looks more like a sports car than a humdrum family hatchback. It helps that it's got this Aston Martin style grille which really grabs your attention.
The Golf, however, isn't quite so head-turning. That's because it pretty much looks like every other Golf before it. But that is what makes it so recognisable. Still, if you had to, how would you describe the design to someone?
Well, it's boxy. That's all I have to say on the matter, really. Oh, and it's got a VW badge on the front, and people tend to like that.
People also like lots of technology in their cars, and the Golf infotainment system is a breeze to use and available with smartphone connectivity. In fact, the whole cabin has been well thought out.
Here on the inside, it's just simple, straightforward, no nonsense, and feels quality where it needs to feel quality. You know, it's not going to excite people, but it's not going to offend them either. And that's the Volkswagen way.
Meanwhile, the Ford way seems to be aimed at frustrating users. The sync infotainment system is laggy and needlessly complicated to use, and there's no Apple CarPlay nor Android Auto. But that's not the only issue.
The Ford Focus definitely feels the cheapest to sit in. I mean, while you have got squidgy materials here on the dash, there's lots of cheap plastics all over the place. This big steering wheel, isn't that nice to hold? The leather's, well, it feels fake. And overall the design, it's just, well, it looks like it's been designed by a child, actually.
That's not something you'd say about the Vauxhall. In fact, if you've never sat in one, you'll probably be quite surprised how nice it is.
This new Astra's interior is a massive step up over the old cars. In terms of quality, it's right there with the Volkswagen, really. And the design's better, though. I mean, look at it. You've got shiny bits of trim here and here, which just liven things up. And they've even bothered to damp the glove box. I mean, look at that. That feels posh, that does, in an Astra. Just don't look too deep, otherwise you will find bits where they've tried to save some money.
I can't complain about the infotainment system though. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are standard if you don't like Vauxhall's own operating system, which actually is easily good enough. So too are interior cubby spaces, the door bins are huge, front and back, so is the glove box, and there's plenty of storage about the place. But what about carrying larger items?
The Vauxhall Astra's boot isn't all that big, and yeah, it doesn't do anything particularly clever. They've given it these ridges to stop things sliding around. Yeah, that doesn't work very well, does it?
Also, the load lip is high, there's no adjustable boot floor, and the load bay is stepped with the seats folded. Still, you can pack quite a lot of stuff in the Astra's boot, even with the seats up. So while the capacity might not be massive, it's just about enough for a family's luggage. But what's the car like for actually carrying that family?
The back doors on this Astra open nice and wide, so it makes it dead easy to get in. And most people, most of the time, will find it roomy enough back here. The only thing that I'm a little bit disappointed about is there's no central armrest.
If you need to carry 3 people in the back, it's just about bearable, as there's enough foot space, while fitting a child seat is the easiest of all 3 cars here, as the Isofix anchor points are a doddle to locate, and those wide doors help when installing the seat onto the base. In the Ford Focus, this is harder work, as its rear doors don't open very wide. In fact, the rear seats are the least roomy here, the main problem being slightly tight headroom. There is one saving grace though.
Ford has given rear passengers some extra little cubby spaces. So you've got a little storage area here, another one here, and one here, which has room for what looks like a ventilator inhaler, but it's actually a little camera.
On the whole, the Focus has reasonable cubby spaces, but they just aren't quite as useful as in the Astra, and neither is the boot.
If you're the kind of person that wants to carry lots of stuff in their hatchback, then yeah, this probably isn't the car for you.
The boot is the smallest of these cars by quite some margin, and like the Astra, there's a large load lip and a ridge when you fold the seats down. As a result, it's both harder to load and you can fit less in it than with many other family hatches.
The Golf's boot may not be massive by class standards, but at least they've tried to give it some flexibility. Look, you've got an adjustable false floor and a ski hatch. Thanks, guys.
The volume is actually only 10 litres more than the Astra's, but the Golf's boxier shape means you can pack more stuff into it, making it the best load lugger here. And it's a similar story with the back seats.
It's definitely the roomiest here in the back, plus the big windows means it feels lighter inside as well. And look at this! VW give you a nice armrest. Oh, thank God.
The Golf's square body makes it the best for carrying 3 as you get the most shoulder, head and leg room. The only issue is a big lump in the floor affects foot space. Another slight problem are the Isofix fittings, which aren't quite as easy to access as on the Astra, though the rest of the child seat fitting process is stress-free. And when it comes to cubby spaces, the Golf wins out too. On the whole, it is the most practical car here, though not by all that much. However, it's clearly the best thought out. It's obvious money has been spent developing the car's cabin.
The designers have gone the extra mile to make your life as easy as possible. That's why you've got runners for the rear seat belts so that the seats don't snag when you fold them down. You've got this weight on the end of the parcel shelf cord to keep it taut so it looks nice, and it's veined so it doesn't rattle about when you're driving around corners, and there's felt lining the door pockets so things don't make a noise when they're moving around in there. Ooh, felty.
Meanwhile, Vauxhall has invested in class-leading technology to help make its car stand out.
The Vauxhall Astra is available with something called OnStart, and that includes internet connectivity and a mobile phone app which allows you to control some of the car's functions from your mobile phone, including its horn and its lights. And you can use that for pranking your partner when you lend them your car.
However, what sets the Ford apart is less easy to see, but it's something which will appeal to keen drivers.
Unlike the other two cars here, the Ford Focus has independent rear suspension right across the range. That is because Ford wants to make sure that its car is the most fun to drive.
But has it worked? Time to find out.
When the Mark 1 Ford Focus came out all those years ago, it really did shock the world with just how much fun it was to drive. In fact, it was so dynamically brilliant that many racing schools used to use them as tuition vehicles. And Ford has, well, as the cars evolved through different models, they've kept that sense of fun in the car, yet they've managed to also make it feel more grown up, so it's more comfortable than before, it's quieter than before. But still, when you compare the comfort and the quietness, especially to a Volkswagen Golf, yeah, it's not as relaxing to travel in. But if you want the hatchback that is the most fun on a twisty road, well, yes, the Ford Focus. That's the car you want.
So then, how does the Volkswagen measure up?
Now, the thing about the Golf is that it's often used as the benchmark for other cars, and you can imagine the frustration of other manufacturers when they're like, okay, so we've got to make our car handle as good as the Golf, it's got to be as quiet as the Golf, and it's got to be as comfy as the Golf. Because that's a really, really hard thing to do, because, well, this thing just does everything well in terms of its driving experience. Admittedly, it doesn't set your heart on fire, but it doesn't need to. All it needs to do is go about its business without much fuss, and it does that. So it handles well, it steers well, it's quiet, it's relaxing, it just does everything well, almost to the point of being slightly boring.
Finally, we come to the Astra, a car which has never really set the world alight with how it drives.
Now, Astras of old, oh my God, they were just cars which would get you from A to B. You never felt stirred emotionally by them. They weren't any fun. But that's all changed with this new one. I mean, I am quite surprised. This thing, I mean, it handles really well. It's almost as much fun as the Ford Focus, but it doesn't have any of its downsides in terms of like the noisiness. It's as though Vauxhall has nailed it with this car. I cannot believe I'm actually saying that. I genuinely really like driving this Astra. Never said that before. And it's also comfy as well. It's a win-win situation. I'm so shocked. There's not much more I can say, really.
Now, you may be wondering why I've not mentioned engines. Well, it's because these specific cars aren't matched for engine choices. But as a general rule, the Golf has the best engines, followed by the Astra and then the Focus, though they are all very close. So, where does that leave us?
Well, the Ford Focus is the most fun to drive. The Volkswagen Golf is the comfiest. But it's the new Vauxhall Astra which combines the fun of the Focus with the comfort of the VW, adds in some extra technology in the form of its excellent OnStar system, and then undercuts the other two on price, which wins this test. Oh my God, I never thought I'd say that an Astra was better than a Focus and a Golf. What has happened to the world?
If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it and subscribe to our channel. And if you click over there, you can watch the detailed in-depth reviews of each of the cars in this group test. Now, did you know that Ford is actually the second largest family-owned company in the world? If you want to know what the first is, Google it.